What if the stranger you helped on a park bench turned out to hold the power to decide your entire future? That's exactly what happened to me the night I was supposed to impress my fiancé's father, only to discover he was the very man I had just given my lunch and scarf to. Hi lovelies, welcome back to Tales by Laura. Today's story is one you won't forget. I spent time with a homeless man at the park, and he turned out to be my fiancé's father. It's a tale of kindness, pride, and a shocking test that changed everything. Before we dive in, tell me, have you ever helped someone not knowing it would come back around in the most unexpected way? Drop your story in the comments, because I love reading them. And don't forget to share this with a friend who loves powerful stories. And of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next one. I was running late for what felt like the most important evening of my life. The night I would finally come face to face with my fiancé's father, a man as wealthy as he was feared, and as elusive as a shadow. On the way there, I did something I hadn't planned. I stopped. A man sat trembling on a cracked wooden bench near the park, his coat thin, his hands rubbed together for warmth. Without much thought, I handed him the sandwich I had saved for myself, along with the silk scarf my fiancé had pressed on me earlier, insisting it would impress his father. I hurried on, my chest tight, realizing I had just doomed myself by showing up late and disheveled to meet the one person whose approval supposedly determined the future of my relationship. But I had no idea the man I helped was the same one I was about to meet. The invitation to dinner hadn't even come from my fiancé's father directly. It had arrived like a court order, delivered coldly by his attorneys. It read, Mr. Elijah Robinson requests the presence of his son, Marcus Robinson, and his fiancée, Ms. Camille Brooks, at his private estate for dinner. Marcus had waited for this moment for years. He both dreaded and craved it. His father wasn't just rich, he was a legend in the business world. A man who rose from poverty in Atlanta to build a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire, then disappeared from public life altogether a decade earlier. He shut himself inside his sprawling compound, cutting ties with almost everyone, including Marcus's older brother, who he cast out for marrying someone he didn't approve of. Now, it was my turn to be weighed and measured. The week leading up to the dinner had turned my confident fiancé into a ball of nerves. He kept reminding me, Camille, this isn't like meeting a regular parent. My father doesn't care about small talk or feelings. Everything is a test. He doesn't believe in charity. Don't bring up your nonprofit work. Don't talk about your parents being school teachers. Stick to things he respects. Art, history, economics. Wear the emerald dress I bought you. Wear the scarf. And whatever you do, don't be late. He thinks lateness means you're weak-minded. That morning, I ironed my dress twice, practiced polite conversation in the mirror, and told myself this wasn't a dinner, it was an audition. My stomach flipped like I was preparing for a stage performance. When I stepped off the train into Crestwood, a town so wealthy it looked like a movie set, my heart pounded harder. Mansions hid behind iron gates. The streets were eerily quiet, manicured to perfection. I should have called a cab, but instead, I decided to walk the last mile, trying to calm my nerves. That's when I saw him. An elderly black man sat alone on a bench near the park's edge. His gray hair was uncombed, his coat ragged, and his hands shook against the chill in the late afternoon air. He looked out of place in a neighborhood where Bentleys and marble fountains were the norm. I heard Marcus's voice in my head, don't get distracted. Don't mess this up. But then I remembered my grandmother's words, the way you treat those who can't repay you is the truest measure of who you are. So I stopped. He looked up, his eyes surprisingly sharp and alive. Just a little cold, he rasped. And missed the shelter meal today. Without hesitating, I handed him my sandwich. He accepted it slowly, with an unreadable expression, then gave a quiet nod. I noticed him shiver again, and before I could stop myself, I slipped the silk scarf from my neck and draped it over his shoulders. You'll need this more than me, I told him. He studied me for a long moment before whispering, You're a kind young woman. I smiled, wished him well, and hurried off, my heart pounding as I realized I had just ruined my chances before even walking through the mansion doors. By the time I reached the towering gates of the Robinson estate, I was almost 20 minutes late. And that was how I walked into the test already marked as a failure, at least, so I thought. By the time I reached the gates of the Robinson estate, my lungs burned from running. The iron gates loomed like a fortress, the initials ER curled into their center in gold. I pressed the intercom and stammered out my name. After a silence that felt like judgment itself, the gates groaned open. The driveway was a long, winding path flanked by ancient oak trees. At the end of it, the mansion rose, massive, stone, and intimidating, with wings that stretched out like arms ready to swallow you whole. And there was Marcus. He wasn't smiling. He was pacing at the top of the steps, phone clutched tight in his palm. When he spotted me, his face, already pale with nerves, hardened into fury. He stomped toward me, gripping my arm. "Camille," he hissed, "do you have any idea what you've done? You're 20 minutes late. My father despises lateness. He's going to take one look at you and think you're careless. Do you understand what's at stake?" I tried to catch my breath. "Marcus, I'm sorry. There was an old man at the park. His eyes widened in horror. "An old man? You stopped for a stranger? On this day? The one day you couldn't afford to slip?" "I gave him my sandwich," I said quietly. "And my scarf." He was freezing. Marcus's jaw dropped. "You gave away the silk scarf I bought you for this dinner to some random man off a bench." His voice cracked with disbelief. "Camille, what is wrong with you? This isn't one of your charity projects. This is my father. He judges everything. How you walk, how you speak, what you wear. You were supposed to impress him, and you show up late, sweaty, and without the one elegant thing you had on." His words cut like glass. But behind his anger, I saw what it really was. Fear. Marcus wasn't furious at me. He was terrified of his father. For a moment, I almost wilted under it. But then, deep down, a calm rose inside me. I had made a choice back on that park bench. A choice to show kindness, even if it cost me everything else. And strangely, I wasn't ashamed of it. Just then, the massive oak doors creaked open. A tall butler in black and white stood there, his face unreadable. "Mr. Robinson will see you now," he said in a voice as dry as paper. Marcus straightened his tie and whispered frantically, "Let me do the talking." Smile, nod, don't mention the park, don't mention the scarf, just try to be perfect, please. He dragged me inside. The foyer was cavernous, marble floors gleaming under a chandelier the size of a car. Oil paintings of long-gone ancestors lined the walls, their dark eyes following us. The silence in that house was suffocating, like the building itself disapproved of intruders. The butler led us down a hallway that stretched forever, until he stopped before two enormous double doors. "Mr. Robinson is waiting in the dining hall," he announced. Marcus squeezed my hand nervously. My heart pounded as the doors swung open. And that's when I froze. At the far end of the room, seated alone at the head of an impossibly long mahogany table, was the man from the park bench, my scarf draped neatly over his shoulders. I stopped dead in the doorway. My breath caught in my throat. The chandeliers sparkled above, the polished mahogany table stretched endlessly before us, but I saw only one thing, the man at the head of the table. The same man from the park. The same man I had given my food and scarf to. Elijah Robinson, the elusive billionaire. My scarf was draped across his shoulders like a medal. His sharp eyes, clearer and deeper than they had seemed on that bench, locked on mine. A smile tugged at his lips, warm, almost fatherly. "Welcome, Camille," he said, his voice raspy but firm. "Please, sit beside me." Marcus froze, his face draining of color. He glanced from me to his father, panic flooding his eyes. Father, what are you doing? What are you wearing? Are you sick?" Elijah didn't answer his son. His eyes never left mine. "You'll have to forgive me for Alia. An odd little habit of mine. Sometimes I step out into the world as someone no one notices. It reveals things the suits and masks of wealth never could." Marcus's voice broke in disbelief. "Wait, she was talking about you. That was you on the bench." Elijah's smile faded. His gaze slid to his son, suddenly cold and sharp. "Surprised? Marcus, you shouldn't be. You, of all people, should know that I value character above all else. That's the only true currency left in this hollow world." He leaned back in his chair and gestured to the empty seats lining the table. I've tested politicians, CEOs, even family friends in this very room. They arrive polished, rehearsed, eager to impress. But it's always a performance. Polished masks, nothing more. His eyes softened again as he turned back to me. And then, this evening, came you. Late, frazzled, already aware of how high the stakes were. You knew your appearance mattered, you knew every second counted, and yet you stopped. You saw a man cold and hungry, and you gave what you had. Not out of pity, not for show, but because your heart told you it was right. He touched the scarf gently, almost reverently. You gave me your comfort, your warmth, your food, all for a stranger you thought had nothing to give in return. That, my dear, is worth more than money. I sat frozen, my mind spinning, my heart hammering. Marcus, however, was unraveling. His eyes darted wildly between me and his father, his lips trembling. Father, you can't be serious, he stammered. She was late. She embarrassed me. She embarrassed you. This was supposed to prove she was worthy. Enough, Elijah interrupted, his voice slicing the air like a blade. She passed my test. And you, his eyes pierced Marcus like glass, failed yours. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Marcus shrank in his chair, his face pale with humiliation. Elijah gestured to the seat at his right. Camille, come sit beside me. We have much to discuss. A wedding to plan, and perhaps the future of my company. Then, almost as an afterthought, he glanced at Marcus. You may sit at the far end if you wish. Or you may leave. The choice, for once, is yours. The words landed like stones. Marcus's hands shook, but he obeyed, shuffling to the distant end of the table, as far away from his father's authority as possible. Meanwhile, I walked slowly down the length of the polished table, each footstep echoing in the vast room, until I took the seat at Elijah Robinson's right hand, feeling like I had stepped into a new world entirely. The butler glided into the room, wheeling a silver cart that gleamed under the chandelier. Without a word, he set out fine china, polished silver, and steaming plates. The clinking of utensils against porcelain was the only sound for a long, heavy moment. Marcus sat at the far end of the table, slumped and ghost-like, pushing food around his plate without lifting his eyes. Elijah didn't so much as glance at him. His focus was fixed entirely on me. So, Camille, he began, his tone warm but deliberate, tell me about yourself. Not what you think I want to hear. Tell me the truth. I hesitated. Marcus's voice whispered in my head, don't mention your nonprofit. Don't talk about your parents. Keep it polished. But something about the way Elijah was looking at me, the quiet patience in his eyes, made me take a breath and speak honestly. I work with young people in the city, I said carefully. We've been building community gardens and creating safe spaces for kids after school. Most of them don't have much. But when they see something grow from the ground, something they planted, it gives them hope. And hope is powerful. For a long moment, Elijah said nothing. Then, slowly, a smile tugged at his lips. You sound proud of that. I am, I admitted, my voice steadier now. It's not glamorous, and it doesn't pay much, but it matters. My parents, teachers both, always said, what you give the world is more important than what you take from it. They raised me in a little house where books and love were worth more than money. Elijah's eyes lit with something that looked almost like joy. Teachers, you say? Good people. People who build instead of destroy. That explains you. I felt my cheeks warm. For the first time that night, I wasn't afraid. Course after course arrived, but the conversation never turned to money, or business, or appearances. Elijah wanted to know about my childhood, the first book that made me fall in love with stories, the moments in life that taught me kindness mattered. He asked real questions, the kind that reached deeper than small talk. And I answered. At one point, he touched the scarf draped around his shoulders. Then, with deliberate care, he folded it and handed it back to me. This belongs to you, he said softly. It gave me comfort when I needed it. But it's yours, and tonight, it means far more than silk or money. It is a symbol of what you carry inside you. I took it back, stunned by the weight of his words. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in silence, humiliated, watching as his father praised every quality he had once told me to hide. By dessert, it was clear, this was not a dinner. It was a lesson. A quiet declaration that everything Marcus had been afraid of, that my modest background, my non-profit work, my compassion, were not weaknesses at all. They were the very qualities Elijah valued most. As the butler cleared the plates, Elijah finally turned his gaze to his son. "You have a remarkable woman here, Marcus," he said firmly. "Do not make the mistake of underestimating her again. Your place in my company, and in my life, is secured tonight, not because of anything you've done, but because of who she is." The words struck the table like thunder. Marcus flinched as though he had been struck, and for the first time, the ride home from the estate was silent. Marcus gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned pale. His eyes stayed locked on the road, his jaw clenched. When we finally stepped into our small apartment, the silence shattered. He sat down heavily on the couch, dropped his face into his hands, and began to weep. Not the angry tears of a man humiliated, but the broken sobs of a son who had been chasing his father's approval his entire life, and failing. "I'm sorry," he whispered through ragged breaths. "Not just for tonight. For everything. For trying to turn you into someone you're not. For caring more about his opinion than yours. For not seeing you for who you really are." I sat beside him, placing my hand on his back. For the first time, I saw him without the armor, without the posturing. Just Marcus, the boy who had grown up under the shadow of a giant, finally realizing he didn't have to live that way anymore. Our relationship didn't end that night. It began anew. 3 months later, we married, not at a country club or grand ballroom, but in the sunlit backyard of my parents' modest home. The scent of magnolia trees drifted through the air, and laughter filled the garden. It was small, humble, and perfect. And Elijah Robinson was there. This time, he wasn't dressed as a drifter on a bench. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, but around his shoulders, like a quiet badge of honor, rested the silk scarf I had once given away without a second thought. When I spoke my vows to Marcus, a man now softer, humbler, more deserving, I caught Elijah's eye. He smiled at me, warm and knowing. That day, as I stood surrounded by love, I finally understood. The real test had never been about wealth, punctuality, or appearances. It had been about something far simpler, far greater. Not about what you own, not about who you impress, but about the kindness you choose when no one is watching. Because it is in those small, hidden choices, the ones that cost you something, even when you think they don't matter, that your true worth is revealed. And mine had been revealed on a park bench, long before I ever walked through those heavy mansion doors. And that's how one simple act of kindness changed everything. What do you think of Elijah Robinson's unusual way of testing people? Would you have passed his test? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories too. If this story touched you, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs a reminder about kindness, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another powerful story from us. Hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when the next one drops. Thank you so much for watching, lovelies. Until next time, remember, true worth isn't measured by what you own, but by the kindness you show when no one else is watching.